So, after the third script of this video, let's see if I can get it right this time. Anyways, you want to know how to set up Cgminer to work mining on Multipool. I assume that you've already set up an account. Hopefully you have set up workers. If not, you're going to click on account here. You are going to come down here and create your workers. The default will be your username, and there'll be a 1. I just set up 2 here because we're going to be script mining. I'm just letting it know that this is our script worker that'll be working. After you've got that work set up, hit update. Set difficulty around 32, 64, depending on the power of your cards, and then press the home button. Workers will take sometimes 15 minutes to half an hour to populate into the database. Not sure why, it just happens that way. Be patient. A lot of people come on IRC complaining that things aren't working, and all they did was just not wait long enough. But in the meantime, we can start playing around in setting up a config file for Cgminer to run. Cgminer, when you first download it and unzip it, the Windows version, if you double click, will just load up the base install. This way, right now, will A, not be mining script, and B, makes you have to type in everything manually every single time. Really sucky for tweaking, really annoying every time. The next way is you can set up a shortcut onto your desktop, which you can do later once we get a batch file running, and just shortcut to the batch file instead. Another way is to create a batch file and load everything up onto a single line on when you call Cgminer. With setting up a configuration file, however, Cgminer becomes a lot more easy to tweak, monitor, and figure out where things are going wrong. So we're going to do it that way the first time. So to do that, we need to create a batch file and a configuration file. To create a batch file, you're just going to right click in the directory, create a new text document, and we're going to call it test123.bat. Yes, we want to create it. Now you can see it's got the little gear icons down here. If you don't see that and it still looks like a text file, what you're going to want to do is press the Alt key on your keyboard, go to Tools, Folder Options, View, and then make sure that this box is unchecked where Hide Extensions for Known File Types. Hit Apply. It'll probably show up as like whatever you named it, .bat.txt. Just rename the file, delete the .txt. Now we're going to have a batch file that does nothing. So we're going to load it up. You're going to input this command line here. You've probably read this if you read any forums or anything anywhere. You want to set x space GPU underscore max underscore ALLOC underscore %100. This just gets the GPUs working for us as opposed to against us. Color just makes it a little bit easier to read. I find white on black kind of strains the eyes after a long time. Now, this still does nothing besides just set the GPU to work at the way it wants to. So we're going to tell it to launch Cgminer. Here's where we could tell it if we wanted to launch script. Pardon my crappy typing. However, what we're going to tell it to do instead is launch a config file where we're going to tell it to launch script and check our workers and everything else. So we're going to call this config file test123.config. We're going to save that, and that's all the batch file needs. Now, if we try to launch that, nothing's going to happen. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new, actually no, we're going to do this even easier. Cgminer ships with an example configuration file. I'm going to load that up right now. Look at all this handy information that's already in here for us. So first things first, we're going to save as, and we're going to want to change the name to what we named it in the batch file, test123. Now, we can get rid of this crap here. These extra pools are for failover or other purposes. If the main pool goes down, it automatically switches to the next one. If that pool goes down, it switches to the next one. And then it reverses back as the other pools become active to the highest one you have on the list. So you can use this to either go from the multi-pool to a specific coin, or from a specific coin to the multi-pool, or even to an entirely other pool whatsoever, but that's not really necessarily the most profitable, hence why you're here at Multipool. So we're going to get rid of the bottom entry, and we're going to erase all this information up here that we don't need and put in our information. My mouse is a little jumpy today. So we're on test 1, 2, 3. That's our username, dot our worker name that we set up earlier on the website. And Multipool doesn't use passwords, so I'm just going to set X. X seems to work. Some people, when they set passwords, it doesn't accept it. I'm going to set this up again. Test 1, 2, 3. Dot script. Now, the URL. These are the important things. This points Cgminer to Multipool. On the home screen, this button right here, he's got a nice big list, thanks to Flound, of all the pools. We're going to set our main pool as the script stratum pool. This is what you need. I'm just going to copy that and drop it into here between those. You're going to do the same for this one, except we're going to change the port number. You can see down here on the website that the Litecoin pool is 3334. Unless we're mining as a pool, that's not going to pull too many coins. So we're going to set MNC 3339. So if the multipool goes down, this will automatically fail over and start mining NMC for us. You use the same worker for both because we're on the same website. Any other pools that you join up to as a failover, you would have to set up the workers there and make sure they're working. Okay, we're going to get rid of a lot of this garbage for our first run, just to make sure that it works. Leave auto fan and auto GPU. We're going to need a couple more lines here to make sure that we're mining on script. We're not trying to mine bitcoins on the script pool. Here is one of my configuration files. I'm stealing what I've already set up here, which is the script, tell it to work script, and use the script kernel. I'm putting that in. Always make sure between each of these commands in here, if you're changing things around, it won't launch and it will crash if you do not have a comma at the end of each line, except for the very last line in the file. Okay, so we don't lose anything. I'm going to save this. Now, you can see everything's comma separated in here. That is so that you can set up separate settings for each card in your rig. I only have 2, and they're both exactly the same. So I'm going to use the exact same settings, so I don't need to comma separate. For start run, we're going to set an intensity of 13. I'm not going to put anything else in. You hear people talking about thread concurrency and all that sort of stuff. If you read a lot of the forums or the wiki, mucking with these settings is where people tweak Cgminer. What we're going to do is we're going to leave it just basic for now. Now you see we got the batch file. Hopefully this works this time. And I'm going to launch. Takes a couple seconds for Cgminer to boot up. Alrighty, we're mining. This is the Multipool script. You can see this is the difficulty that we set from the website, 32. Here is our hashing power, which as you can see is really low right now. My 2 GPUs, temperature, fan speed. This is important. If this is low and this is high, something's wrong. You either didn't set auto fan or your graphics card is overriding and keeping your fan low to keep noise down. You want fast fans, keep the temperature down. If these cards reach 85 degrees and up, bad things happen. Alright, you can see we're mining at a pretty crappy rate right now. Come back over to our directory. Suddenly, we have a new bin file down here that appeared out of nowhere. We can now close down Cgminer. We're looking for a certain number in here, and it's the one right after the TC. You can see Pitcairn. Those are my chips. Those are my graphic chips. They're Pitcairn chips. Newer cards will probably say Tahiti in there. After the TC, you've got a number here that says 14208. We're going to copy that. This is a multiplier of your shaders. I believe my cards are in the 1296 range for shaders, which we can double check here. My math is right. No, I'm wrong. Somewhere around there. Anyways, that's a multiplication of our shaders. This, depending on the card you're running, is the number of our thread concurrency that we're going to alter up and down if you want to tweak. So to get that working now, we put this in. Don't forget your comma. And we're going to save it. We don't need this bin file anymore. It will create a new one every time you run it. However, I put an L in. This is a better tune than running shaders. You can get that number if you put shaders in and enter in the exact shaders for your model of card, but you don't need to. So now we're going to run that batch file again. Oh, I typed something wrong. Did it not save? There we go. You can see why I've already done this 3 times. Little things like that. Now, I am encoding using these graphics cards, so my hash rate is going to be really low because it's doing most of the work for encoding. What that would have done is loaded up the thread concurrency at a much higher value than your shader's value. Way better for tuning. You can see we're already detecting blocks. Eventually we'll start getting accepts. Rejects are bad, hardware is really bad. Rejects, if you're under 1%, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Try lowering your difficulty back on the website, it may help. To get this tuned a little bit better though, we're going to enter in some extra things here now. We're not going to do auto GPU, because that's going to adjust the GPU engine speed and memory up and down, which isn't really going to help us. We are going to set GPU min clock. My cards have a maximum memory speed of 1450. You can also set the engine as well, which I find needs to be a multiple of 0.54 to 0.6 of whatever your GPU min clock is. Just use the calculator to figure that out. That's a good starting base. You can adjust this number up or down by 5 to sort of get your ideal hash rate. We're going to save that. Oh, and I'm missing a comma. Yet again. Always important. This may chug my stream here. You can see right here, it says switching to pool 1. That means it tried to load pool 0, which is the multi-pool, first. It couldn't hit it, so it automatically switched to our secondary pool. The secondary pool came alive, it switched back to it. You can see the kilohash is already a little bit higher than before. After that, once we start accepting shares, you can start ramping up the intensity in that batch file, or in the config file. My cards will run at intensity 18 at that thread concurrency and hash for 400 kilohashes each. As you can see, I'm much less right now. But when I'm not running video recording, this is much higher. Anyways, that's a simple way to set it up and the beginning of tweaking. You can always change your thread concurrency, multiply it or divide it, or add or subtract your shaders for your video card, which you can find numbers for all over the forums. Anyways, have a good day.